Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I'm your host Faisal Raza and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, after 76 years, unfortunately, Naqvi continues in Palestine. Illegitimate state of Israel and its occupation forces continued their atrocities in West Bank, particularly in Gaza. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, since October 7, 2023, at least 35,250 people killed, while at least 79,200 people injured, 10,000 are still missing in Gaza alone. In West Bank, 500 innocent people murdered, over 4,950 injured. In Israeli brutalities, continues genocide and ethnic cleansing. Palestinian Authority, United Nation Refugee Agency for Palestine and the World Bank, they all says that 62% or 90,000 houses completely destroyed, 300,000 houses damaged, at least 18.5 billion US dollar critical infrastructure vanished, while 85% or 1.9 million Palestinians or the innocent population of Gaza forcefully displaced from their houses. Israel intensified its attack on Rafah and other parts of Gaza. Now they are planning to have full-fledged invasion into the last city where at least 1.5 million Palestinians took refuge. More than 600,000 civilians fled the city, and now the tensions are growing at the border with Egypt. Not only with Egypt, but also with Lebanon. Tensions are growing with Israel. Turkey said that Israel will not stop at Gaza, might cite Anatolia afterwards. Egypt became the part of South African case against Israel in International Court of Justice. European Union calling to end the hostilities and stressed upon ceasefire. On the other hand, UK, Germany and US continued supplying arms and ammunition weapons to Israel. Arab League demanded end to war and UN peacekeepers deployment till the two-state solution must have to be decided. United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Egypt and Jordan, they demand Palestinian statehood immediately after the end of war. So now the situation is volatile in Middle East and it's worsening day by day. We'll discuss the whole situation and whether this Gaza crisis is going to spill over in Middle East as well, or what are the threats right now. So to discuss it, we have in our studios Dr. Waseem Ishaque, the senior analyst. Most welcome to you, Dr. Waseem. And Fraz Naqvi joining us from IRS. He is the head of Iran program and research scholar. Most welcome to you, Fraz. Thank you very much for your presence here. And online joining us, SArwar Naqvi Sahab. He is the former ambassador and a very seasoned diplomat. Most welcome to you, SArwar Naqvi Sahab. And thank you very much for your time. My first question to you, SArwar Naqvi Sahab, that how do you see the Gaza situation right now as the illegitimate state of Israel continuously threatening Palestinians and started its gradual Rafah assault by expanding its offensive, while at least 600,000 people now fled the city that was the last refuge for Palestinians with the Egyptian border. How do you see the situation right now?
Thank you, for, Mr. Faisal Raza for inviting me on this program. Yes, the situation in Gaza is extremely worrisome. It is perhaps an unprecedented suffering of an entire population that has been inflicted upon it by an occupying force, which is the Israeli IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. And I think the international community has done nothing for more than 6 months, and even going into the 7th, to prevail upon Israel to do two things. One is to stop the bombing campaign and thus end the suffering of the innocent Palestinian population, the men, women, and children who are all under completely sitting ducks because they have no protection and they are being bombarded and their homes destroyed and their people killed. Now, that is one. The other is that the problem that Israel might be having with Hamas, the Palestinian movement, is something that they should negotiate. Whenever there is a hostage situation, then there are negotiations to deal with it. This does not allow Israel to carry on a campaign against innocent civilians on a massive scale in violation of the Geneva Conventions of War, in violation of the humanitarian conventions of the United Nations, and in violation of the UN Charter. So uh, this entire policy, this entire course of action is illegal, illegitimate, and inhuman. And the most important thing is totally inhuman because, as somebody said, that even animals are protected under international humanitarian laws, and here there are innocent civilians who are being killed, their homes destroyed, their schools, hospitals, all community centers completely razed to the ground. This is
Absolutely right, Mr. Ambassador.
totally unprecedented.
Faraz, when we are talking about the Israel's continuous use of starvation as weapon, as this is the third or the fourth time that now the Palestinians within their territory, they are displaced. And United Nations, most of the humanitarian organizations, they are calling it full-blown famine there now. So as Israel blocked all corridors of humanitarian assistance, they are now trapping them into a cage. And now, once again, they have intensified their attacks on innocent Palestinians. So they want to kill each and every Palestinian right now. They want to occupy that whole enclave. And what's your thoughts on that?
Thank you so much, Faisal, for inviting me. Well, you are quite right about this. If we see that there is one genocidal factor which is involved in the case of Rafah and Gaza specifically. The other aspect which is being overlooked by the experts is that Israel has basically blocked all the entry points and also taking its military action through land inside Rafah. That will push the limits of people living there towards the borders, that is the Egyptian border, and towards the north, that is the Lebanese border. That would put pressure on those two international borders, in which there is a high probability that those two states would definitely gonna retaliate or take some sort of action to minimize the pressure on their choke points, on their entry point. That could lead to some sort of military escalation, if not an all-out conflict with Israel, that would provide Israel an excuse to expand the Gaza war. And Turkey statements in this regard that after Gaza, Israel might see towards Anatolia. It is quite right to some extent, because we have already seen such a case scenario in the case of Israeli airstrikes on the Iranian.
We'll discuss in detail regarding the Asia Minor and all that, because that is the point basically. So, Dr. Waseem, when we are talking about how do you see the statement of the Palestinian civil defense, which say that at least 80% of the capabilities in Gaza are all destroyed, and they don't have any sort of a capability right now. No one responding to the appeals of the Palestinian Authority and they made to the international institutions for helping them humanitarianly and all other aspects. So how do you see that? Because international community is completely mum on that aspect.
Faisal, thank you. It's a very important question, and let me highlight how actually the double standards of the United States and the West, and especially in the post-Second World War international order, which is now crumbling, because of the limits of US diplomacy, they have tried and they have declared many times that Rafah is the red line, quote unquote, President Joe Biden.
Obviously.
And Secretary Blinken also said at several occasions. They also threatened to not to process the supply of hardcore weapons and ammunition for Israel if it goes to Rafah. So, Rafah is already, they have invaded Rafah. They are moving incrementally, and they have displaced a large amount of population from there, and yet the United States diplomacy and the US weapon system, everything supplies going on. Very recently,
Yes,
the
definitely,
US Congress
definitely.
passed $20 billion US aid and $1 billion specifically for the military aid, all is being supplied. And we have seen the ceasefire efforts put in by Qatar, by Egypt, and also when the United States said that it is now over Hamas, whether to take it or not to take it.
That was deliberately ruined because
So-
unfortunately that was not only Israel but also US was the party to those negotiations.
Hamas accepted
and they have
this.
done nothing.
Hamas accepted it.
Yes, definitely.
And Israel rejected it.
Obviously.
Now, please link this to Israel's war aims with which Netanyahu initially actually described those, that from west bank of River Jordan to the sea, everything would be eventually governed by Israel. So, they have moved to that direction, and the way Netanyahu has so far demonstrated his political will and determination, he is actually adamant to do this.
Definitely.
However, we have seen its defense minister yesterday, he has given yet another option, and he has rather challenged his wisdom. So, therefore, we have seen some movement across the political leadership and the defense leadership. There are certain cracks which we have seen yesterday.
Obviously, you are absolutely right. When Fraz, do you think that United Nations call for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, and just yesterday UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres once again stressed, and he is stressing right from the first day. So in Gaza Strip right now, there is a devastation going on from the last 7 months as illegitimate state of Israel and its occupation forces not ready to accept anything. So how do you see that whether at some point United Nations is going to be successful in having ceasefire?
Well, you see, Faisal, diplomatic stress onto the state of Israel or onto the entire situation of the Palestinian crisis is not going to put any sort of pressure on Israel, because the party, the onus of burden lies on the shoulders of Israel, because the ceasefire has been proposed that was partially accepted by Hamas, but it was Israel who denied the ceasefire agreement. And this could not get happen unless or until Palestinians are given the political rights through its due recognition in the UNSC. You see that there have been so far 3 UNSC resolutions put forward on the recognition of Palestine as a full member state in UN, but two of them have been vetoed by US in favor of Israel against Palestinian, and in the third one US abstained. So the moral pressure on the US has been growing up, as we have seen through the protest of university students as well as the civil society members inside the US. But unless or until any practical measures specifically at the political level is not being taken, we see that UN missions or UN proposal would meet at that
So
end.
another one question, because earlier you were talking about blocking of the borders and the choke points basically where the humanitarian assistance blocked. So another dangerous thing what the Israeli occupation forces are doing right now, thousands to evacuate from Rafah and then pushing them to a so-called humanitarian zone along with Mawasi coastal strip. That is very tiny strip, and already that is packed with at least 450,000 people. So that is going to be the worst condition, and if Israel is going to bombard that area, because 600,000 people already fled Rafah. So how do you see that situation?
Well, we see through analyzing the Israeli strategy for the past 76 years that Israel has been shrinking the space for Palestinians. From being a two-state solution, Israel is now adamant upon having the one-state solution.
Because
that is
time and
only
again Israel is creating some sort of a death trap for the Palestinians.
Exactly, you are
within
very
Gaza.
right. In fact, if we see the Gaza as a strip, it is labeled as an open-air prison. And now the exact Gaza strip has been shrunk to the one region in which about 1 million Palestinians are residing, which is inside only one one part of Gaza, that is Rafah region. So we have seen that through the passage of time, the space for Palestinians have been shrinking, which would allow Israel an upper hand to establish its apartheid states ranging from the Dead Sea to the Mediterranean.
Obviously, your point well taken. Mr. Ambassador, independent human rights experts have issued a report in late January, that 100-page report that was titled Genocide in Gaza, Analysis of International Law and its Applications to Israel's Military Action since October 7, 2023. That was submitted to United Nations, confirmed Israeli genocide in Gaza. Whether Israel, its regime, especially the Netanyahu and its military commanders, are going to punish, and any sort of repercussions for particularly those countries supplying weapons. They are equally part of the genocide because they have supplied lethal weapons against civilians.
Yes, I think, all the human rights organizations, the United Nations, and all independent observer groups and associated with the entire issue have declared very clearly that Israel is in violation of all the principles and norms of humanitarian law. And this is now a matter that has also been taken to the International Court of Justice. South Africa has again approached the ICJ to give a ruling to at least declare Israeli actions as illegal and as in violation of the UN Charter. Now, the problem is that the world has not seen this kind of defiance by any member state of the United Nations up till now in 75 years. So the United Nations is proving to be a failure, just as the League of Nations proved to be a failure. The time has to come where the United Nations has to be declared a totally ineffective body, and then a new organization or a completely overhauled and reformed international body has to be considered. So this is raising all kinds of questions. Plus, you mentioned the regional situation. Yes, I think the regional countries are also worried about a rogue state, which Israel has now become, which is going to be a predator or a kind of aggressor for all the surrounding states. Of course, they will retaliate. In Lebanon, the Hezbollah, in Yemen, even the Houthis, and all these other groups and factions are going to do what they can to stop Israel. But Israel has a completely preponderant military power, and that is being further augmented by the United States, which is only yesterday approved the supply of another $1 billion of arms sales to Israel. So,
definitely.
this,
Mr. Ambassador, do you think that what report I was referring to, that was based upon, most of them were the US human rights experts in that report, and they have endorsed it, that it's a genocide which is going on in Rafah right now. So do you think that such independent reports strengthen the current legal cases against Israel, not only in the International Court of Justice, but also what is some sort of a movement we have seen in the International Criminal Court, as well as a case which is going on against the Biden administration in US federal court?
Yes, I think it is certainly going to be cited, the report that you have mentioned, in all these cases and all these deliberations, and that would put Israel in the dock. But the crux of all this, the test of any such position or approach, is that there should be some effective action. and unfortunately, no action is being taken. Under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, the international community has a right to intervene militarily with the peacekeeping force to force the combatants to stop their hostilities. I think it is time for the UN to create such a peacekeeping force of neighboring countries or other interested countries. But
Unfortunately, international community has taken 7 months to implement Article 7 of the UN Charter. So, when we are talking about particularly the Washington's hypocrisy, and on one side, Biden administration was talking about pausing some sort of 3,500 pounds bombs or 500 to 2,000 pounds bombs to Israel. They have paused that shipment. So soon after, there have been billions of dollars of defense aid, having $1 billion just recently, having the tank ammunition, the tactical vehicles, and the mortar rounds and all that. So what sort of this Biden administration, this double game they are playing right now, they are not going to be, or they are not relevant right now as a world power because of their decision making right now?
As I highlighted earlier, unfortunately, because of their double standard policies, the United States diplomacy has seen its limits, because now Netanyahu is not listening to them and the world is actually watching. What has happened?
Actually, nobody is listening to them right now.
Nobody is listening, and especially Netanyahu. They announced that Rafah is a red line, but still Rafah operation is happening. They announced that they are going to support the ceasefire deal and Hamas must take it, and Hamas took it and Netanyahu rejected it, and they still quiet. And the most worrisome development has been the genocide, the definition by the United States government given for the genocide, that by definition we still don't observe that genocide is happening in Gaza in the entirety. So there's a huge difference at the government and political level, and there's a huge difference at the public level.
West actually lost their credibility into the international system right now when we are talking about. So Fraz, why there is unprecedented support to Israel to carry on this whole genocide, ethnic cleansing, these war crimes, atrocities with complete impunity, and the United States, UK, Germany, even India and all other countries are providing weapons and ammunition, high-tech equipment, drones at a very large scale, and all kind of assistance going on. Where is the international system?
Well, you see, Raza, that the world is basically dominated by the Western-led system in the political and economic spheres. And you see that with the exception of Middle Eastern region, some of the client state which is Western dominated has been present in the entirety of every world.
But we were hearing a lot about the multilateralism earlier on before this Gaza crisis. So where is that?
Well, you see, it is the emerging multilateralism or emerging multipolarity. But so far, the world has been overwhelmingly been dominated by a unipolar world which is Western led. And inside the Middle East, there is only one country that promotes or fostered the Western ideology that is sync with the Western capitals, and that is the state of Israel. So that is why we see that US, Europe and many Western aligned states are basically unhindered by what Israel has been committing inside Palestine, because they see that if anything is to happen to Israel, it would be a death blow to the ideological definition or ideological triumph of Western politics inside the Middle East. Because if we minus Israel, we see that there is Iran which has its own political ideology, and then we see there is Arab countries who have some sort of security alliance with US, but that security alliance is based upon the energy resources. Unlike Israel, because the support of the US or Western allies to Israel is unconditional. It is an all-out security umbrella which they have provided to Israel. That is not the case with Turkey or Arab region or Gulf states. So that is why supporting Israel is so much crucial for Western states to promote their ideology. And in the international system, we see apart from many materialistic factors, ideology stands at the top. That is what we are seeing in the case of Iranian relations with its proxy partners in the Middle East because of this sinking of ideology. Same is the case with Western capitals capitals with regards to their relation with Israel because of the ideological sinking between the two.
Absolutely, absolutely. You are talking right now. And Dr. Waseem, when we are talking about the ICJ, International Court of Justice, South Africa once again attempt to seek ICJ's provisions against Israel to stop carnage in Gaza, particularly Rafah now. And while Egypt joined this case, along with that, Turkey considering to join South Africa lawsuit against Israel, Colombia, Libya, Nicaragua was already the part of it. So how do you see that whether International Court of Justice is going to play some role in halting Israel from this whole massacre which is going on?
From my perspective, this is a very, very defining time for ICJ's credibility or ICC's credibility as well, because we have seen these organizations have been very effective in Bosnian and Yugoslavian war. These organizations have been very effective against the African leaders, but so far whatever two verdicts they have given, it was not a binding on Israel. And also the United States commented that it was even, whatever mild it was even biased.
It seems that these international courts are also tilting towards the West, because wherever West goes, they goes towards that. Because in Bosnian case, you are very much witness of that. And in African case, that is where the West was actually. And now the West, if West is with Israel, then it means that they are unable to do anything against Israel.
So therefore, that's why I said that it's a big question mark on the credibility of ICJ. And if they are unable to pass any sort of verdict and binding order for Israel, probably then in future, nobody is going to go to ICJ for any sort of relief from there. So therefore, I would say that this Gaza war is going to define the future international system, whereby while we talk of multipolarity and multilateral system, but in that case, the China and Russia's role should have been very effective. But both these countries so far on Gaza war have just supported at the diplomatic level, at the UN Security Council resolution level, but beyond that, they have not demonstrated anything. The Arab League's recent meeting, if they really come out with some sort of joint strategy of even the peacekeeping forces, as it has been suggested, and with the auspices of the United Nations, and the countries like the Middle Eastern countries and all the Muslim countries then can take a lead role in formulating that sort of peacekeeping forces, I'm sure that would be a game changer in the future of Gaza and the whole of Palestine for the future.
Let's see, we will discuss in detail as well. Your point well taken. Mr. Ambassador, how do you see the European Union's recent statement, which categorically asked Israel to end military operation and have ceasefire in Gaza? They also referred to International Court of Justice orders of January 26th and March 28th, and said that ceasefire is a must in Gaza to avoid any sort of escalating humanitarian situation. While Belgium is a proponent right now in European Union with some other countries to have complete ban on European weapons supply to Israel. How do you respond to this?
Well, the European Union has, of course, expressed strong language in what you are saying in their pronouncements, but it lacks what one says, it lacks teeth. There is no teeth. It's a toothless organization because they can't do anything. They have not been able to even persuade the United States or, for that matter, Israel itself to do what is immediately required, and that is to stop the bombing campaign against the people. I mean, the whole argument of Israel is that they want to release the hostages. They want the release of their hostages. And the Hamas, determined to fight till the end, is holding on to them. So this particular situation can be addressed by some meaningful negotiation, which should be undertaken by the European Union, which is a body which is perhaps has slightly more credibility than the United States in terms of its position. And as you have already yourself explained, their recent statements and declarations. And they should bring about a discussion, a negotiation process whereby the question of the hostages is discussed and some solution found. Now, if that be the case, then the immediate demand would be a ceasefire and a stoppage to the bombing campaign. And unless the bombing is stopped, I think there can be no meaningful discussion. So this whole thing is caught up in a kind of deadlock because Israel continues doing what it can or wants, and the Palestinians continue to suffer. And this has been going on for nearly 7 months, and there is no end in sight.
You are well aware of that, and you also served in United Nations as well. On May 10th, 2024, the UN General Assembly has passed an overwhelmingly the resolution with rights and new rights and privileges for the Palestinian state particularly. They have called the Security Council to reconsider Palestinians' full membership at the UN. So do you think that there is going to be any sort of a chance to have that United Nations Security Council reconsider its earlier approach, and obviously the veto is the hurdle basically, and the United States or other Western countries are aligning with Israel right now, but it was an unprecedented 143 to 9 votes actually to that resolution, and only 25 countries have abstentions.
Yes. Are you asking me this question? Or?
Yeah, definitely. I'm asking about the UNGA resolution that was passed and whether...
the UNGA resolution and the overwhelming support of that resolution by the entire international community is remarkable. And I think the United States and its allies should realize what the international community thinks and what they want to have done. And this is something that American government, American Congress, and American public opinion should take cognizance of. But the tragedy of this whole thing is that they continue to give unstinted support to Israel without considering anything else. And that, I think, is the real calamity that one can describe as the US policy. And the international community, even if a Palestinian state is approved, do you think Israel will allow it to be born or to exist? I don't think so. I think the entire exercise is to stop Israel from behaving as an aggressor state in the region. And do
you think that this UNGA vote, which was actually very clear regarding the Palestinians' full membership, it is not only that, but also endorses that the US-Israel nexus or the alliance is actually got defeat in UNGA, and also the Israel gradually getting isolated at the international arena. Even the European friends are not with Israel right now, as France, Spain, Belgium, Greece, Portugal, Ireland and others voted in favor of Palestine rather than Israel.
Yes, and this is most unfortunate, and I think Israel continues to defy the United Nations, the resolutions of the UN General Assembly, and all other reports, studies, assessments that are being made about the genocide in the Gaza Strip. Then the whole thing redounds to what needs to be done, and I think there should be complete unison or united action in regard to what is being done. And that, I think, should be that the international community, if not the international community, at least the Arab states, the Muslim states, should give a warning to Israel that unless the bombing is ended within 24 hours, they will take action.
You are absolutely right. Absolutely right. European
they
Union
have
High
not given-
Representative, Dr. Waseem, the European Union High Representative for Foreign Affairs, Josep Borrell, while giving an interview to the Spanish national radio RNE on May 9th, confirmed that the media reports of that the Spain, Ireland, and number of the European Union countries are going to recognize Palestine as a state this month. So, how do you see it? A very responsible person is making a statement.
Yes. I think there is a growing public sentiments in the European countries and across the Muslim world, where the public sentiment and the government stance, they are now differing. And we have seen the success of public sentiments in the end of Vietnam War and even the Iraq War, in the Korean War. So therefore, now it is about time that the public is now in charge into those countries, and they are now in the driving seat to actually dictate the policies and the right policies, and especially to end how to end this suffering of the people in Gaza, and for the lasting and enduring peace and stability in the entire region. And for that, the two-state solution, which has been, and even up till now, the United States also propagate the two-state solutions. But the government would only get under pressure when the public sentiments go against it. And this is what we have seen in most of the European capitals and even the United States. So therefore, what the governments, those governments we just highlighted from the EU have decided to recognize the state of Palestine, is the right move. And it's likely to happen because now the public sentiments are growing against their respective governments. So therefore, for creating harmony and having the political legitimacy, they have to listen to the public. And as we go closer to the election campaign in the United States, which is just few months away, I'm sure a lot would change on the US policy against overall Israel and against the war in Gaza. And I'm sure as we get closer to the US elections, more talk of the two-state solution and enduring stability would come up, as we have witnessed in the past.
Well elaborated, Dr. Waseem, well elaborated. US decides or not, but Arab 5 has decided. So, how do you see Fraz, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Jordan, and Egypt? They have made Arab 5 unity to have a strong voice for the Palestinian statehood against any future post-invasion Gaza scenario, especially when it comes to the financial or the political support. Rather, it's the two parties. So they wanted that this Palestinian statehood must have to be recognized at any cost. Without that, they are not going to have any sort of a support even for Israel. So how do you see that?
Yeah, you see basically the Arab relations with Palestine is that of ethnic, nationalistic, historical, linguistic, as well as ideological as well. So Arab states have been increasingly feeling that the dire state of Palestinians would have the ultimate impact at the societal level of Arab countries that would basically weaken the bond between the society and the state of Arab, and that would put more pressure on the Arab states to revive their strategy. So that is why the creation of that Arab 5 is quite important.
So what's your thought, Dr. Waseem, that Arab League 22 members now they are stressing upon a recent summit that was happened in Bahrain, having the Manama Declaration as well, and that called the international protection and peacekeeping forces of the United Nations in occupied Palestinian territories. So until a two-state solution, while Israel wants its military supervision in Gaza. So how do you see that?
In my perspective, all these Arab 5 which you just highlighted in the previous question, they have a huge leverage if they really decide to go over to the situation, because the United States has been almost begging these rich Arab countries for the post-war reconstruction. And in that case, Saudi Arabia has offered its good offices that Saudi Arabia
in principle, they have decided, but how much it could be practical, that is the real question.
But the precondition is the two-state solution.
Obviously.
For the enduring stability.
Obviously.
So if that happens, that means there is a kind of leverage which Saudi Arabia, Qatar and UAE would be certainly playing in future. So therefore, from that perspective, if we let's say decide cessation of hostilities and exchange of prisoners happens in some future time frame, thereafter would be the two-state solution and the peacekeeping forces from even the Arab countries or the Muslim countries, and followed by the reconstruction, rehabilitation.
So what about the peacekeeping forces in the Palestinian territories which are occupied by Israel?
Certainly, then this peacekeeping forces have to be actually, should be entering into those areas after some sort of negotiated settlement has already happened.
Yeah, obviously.
It can't go right in the combat zone. So, therefore, for that either the two-state solution right away or certain steps leading to two-state solutions that would create conditions for the deployment of peacekeeping forces when these two warring parties would be then kept aside. So, however, it is all doable and can be done even in weeks time if the United States and these Arab countries together try and pressurize Israel, because for reconstruction part they have a huge leverage. For that United States has been coming. And also we have seen last 2 days President Putin and President Xi, since President Putin has been visiting China, they both have unequivocally said for the two-state solution for enduring stability. So, therefore, if we can engage these two great powers as well, so I think probably the time is ripe where we can go for the negotiated settlement.
Well elaborated, well elaborated. Mr. Ambassador, due to the Rafah border crossing force shutdown, we have already mentioned that there is a tension going on at the border between Egypt and Israel, and even Israeli intelligence officials visited Cairo as well to have to minimize those tensions. But the fears of clash is mounting. What do you think? And we have seen tensions there at the Lebanon border as well because of the refugee influx, because of the choke down of all the humanitarian supplies and all that. So there is a huge stress, economic stress as well to both the countries.
Yes, I mean, the outcome or the result of Israeli aggression and Israeli bombardment of the Palestinian population is that the neighboring countries are all under stress, and the forced migration of many Palestinians, which will result from this kind of situation where a death trap, as you yourself use the term, has been now created in Rafah, would cause a spillover effect in the neighboring countries, including Jordan, where I was ambassador at one time, and there were lots of Palestinians who were moving into Jordan then also. The entire scenario is bound to disturb the entire Middle East region in turmoil, and the responsible state for all the turmoil is Israel, which is an anomaly. It is an aberration in this whole region, and either Israel should be stopped from its behavior or completely in disregard of humanity, in disregard of any human feelings or concerns, or they should be prepared to face this. I think the states in the region will eventually realize that they have to take action. Unless that is done, I mean, there have been demonstrations in Jordan, in Amman, even though there is a very tightly run state. Egypt is, of course, directly affected. So Lebanon, I think, is another state which will suffer the consequences. All these states are under severe stress, and they will be facing the negative, deleterious effects of Israel's actions. I think, the United Nations needs to either act or just end its existence. The League of Nations died because Italy occupied Ethiopia.
Ambassador,
Japan
we have actually run short of
Manchuria.
time, so I'm so sorry for that, but we have, if we have more time, we will discuss in detail as well. But thank you very much for your presence online. Thank you very much for your precious time. Thank you very much, Dr. Waseem, for your time, and thank you very much, Fraz. Well elaborated. Thank you. So nice of you. No doubt, as Mr. Ambassador SArwar Naqvi was saying, that there is a danger of the spillover from the Gaza into the Middle East, and this is really a worsening crisis into the Middle East right now. And Arab League and all other organizations, and even the Arab 5, they are very right in their approach right now, because they have to go on with this whole ambit, because first of all there must have to be a two-state solution. The Palestinian statehood is a must to maintain peace in Middle East and for the Arab states as well. And along with that, it is important that there must have to be a peacekeeping force under the United Nations umbrella to maintain peace. But first of all, there must have to be some sort of a political solution. Turkey President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has made a categorical statement that Israel will not stop in Gaza. This rogue and terrorist state will set its sights on Anatolia or Turkey sooner or later. This is absolutely correct. And when we are talking about Israel turned into a real-time, a rogue, illegitimate rogue state, which is utilizing its military power in assistance with the Western powers to inflict pain on Palestinians. International community has to put more pressure on Israelis right now. And ICJ has to practically decide for its fate, particularly that Israel is committing genocide right now. Palestinians must have to be given full membership of the United Nations. UN Security Council has to think a bit on that. European Union has to assert itself if they want to have real peace in Middle East. And along with that, the UN has to assert itself as an international organization, because it is gradually getting irrelevant in international system, because that is going to be a disastrous for entire humanity and the entire globe. This is all from today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.